It's the same old thing as yesterday.
Welcome to the House of Pain, brought to you by the ARP Wave Clinic. Now, along with Dennis Thompson, here's your host, the common man, Dan Cole.
Greetings, good morning, and welcome to House of Pain. I'm the common man, Dan Cole, along with Dennis Thompson, the founder of the ARP Wave System. The show, as I said, is the House of Pain here on The Fan, heard every Sunday morning. Dennis, good morning to you.
Good morning, Common.
How are you feeling today?
Absolutely wonderful.
And I'm bright and bushy-tailed as well. We've been doing the show now for, it's going on, I think something through the 12th show. It's pretty much like 3 months.
Yeah, about 3 months.
We've had a lot of response, a lot of positive response. A lot of people have called the ARP Wave Clinic or they emailed you. For people that haven't heard the show yet, if you could, in a nutshell, explain what is the ARP Wave System?
Well, it's a system designed to find the origin of a problem rather than addressing the symptoms. So many people have pain in a given location, and all the treatment is indicated to that specific location. In the clinic, we find where the pain is coming from, not where it ended up. And basically, it's a 3-part system. As you know, the first thing we do is we want to identify, is the nervous system sending the appropriate electrical signal to the muscles to be able to stabilize them to absorb force. If they can't, you're going to be hurt or you're going to get hurt, one or the other. Number 2 is if that muscle isn't doing its job, shock absorbing, then there's probably going to be damage caused by that force going to areas it's not supposed to go to, kind of like on your elbow. And what we do is then get rid of that damage. And then the third piece is we build the strength up in the muscle to where it can then absorb force more efficiently. 3-part system. If one of those pieces is missing, the system does not work.
Give the listeners an idea of during the time we've talked about, you have asked clients, literally hundreds and hundreds, literally thousands of world-class athletes, football players, soccer players, hockey players, tennis players, golfers, et cetera, But give us an idea of what type of clients and conditions you worked on this week, for instance, just some of the people that you saw, because I'm sure you probably did see some athletes of names people would recognize, but you deal a lot with just everyday Joe Bag of Donuts, common kind of folk, pardon the pun.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have, this week we've had probably 5 NHL players in after the Stanley Cup. We've had players that had issues caused by inability to absorb force. We've had players that have come in just getting ready for the next season. As an example, we have a guy that came in who was unable to get into a good skating position, a power skating position, because his hip flexors were so tight. And he had gone to many, many different experts throughout the United States, and just to come to find out that everybody wanted to do surgery to release the muscle. And what we did in a very short period of time is identified that it wasn't his hip flexor, it was another muscle group altogether. We relaxed the muscles in that group, and consequently he could move more efficiently. We had a woman in that had MS, was basically almost in a wheelchair type of environment. We don't do anything for the actual disease of MS, and I know we'll talk about that a little bit later, but, the thing that we had to find out is what muscles were not doing their job. And we then found those muscles and were able to stimulate those muscles efficiently. And she's well on her way of getting out of a wheelchair and being able to move around without a great deal of difficulty.
We've had 2 testimonial type interviews, Brett Hedican, and the other NHL player was?
Matt Cullen.
And one of the 2, I don't remember which one, basically said ARP Wave System was nothing short of a miracle for him. He was ready to stop playing. He could not play with the pain, and now the ARP Wave System got him not only to be pain-free, but he said it's actually improved his quality of life and has improved his play as a National Hockey League player.
Oh, dramatically. That's a very interesting story. It's Brett Hedican. Brett was from the Twin Cities here and went to St. Cloud State. But Brett is probably known as one of the most efficient skaters in the National Hockey League, and certainly one of the fastest. Brett went to the Olympics, and that's basically where he met Christy Yamaguchi, his wife, and they then started a family. Well, in I think it was 2006, right after the walkout he came to us, and he was going to retire, absolutely going to retire. He had too much pain, and Christy said that she couldn't handle the complaining. Every morning he would get up, and he would just be in severe back pain and knee pain. Came to us as last resort and said, I'm quitting. I'm going to go back to Carolina. He's playing for the Carolina Hurricanes. I'm going to go back and tell him this year that this is it. I'm not going to go to camp. I said, well, give me 10 days, and let's see what we can accomplish, because I believe I can get you out of pain, and I believe that I can change that whole story for you. We worked with him very similar to the way we worked with you. At the end of 10 days, he was pain-free, skating pain-free for the first time in 9 years. And to make a long story short, that year he won the Stanley Cup, and he was also invited back to the Olympics, all in the year that he was going to quit.
And that's why he referred to it as nothing short of a miracle.
That's why he referred to it as a miracle.
Okay, talk about high-profile athletes. There's one that's been in the news for, seems like, at least here in Minnesota, well, nationwide, but particularly here in Minnesota, week after week after week, Brett Favre. Yeah, and he was got the bicep problem or whatever the case may be, and then he went through this surgery, and they're still trying to figure out whether he's ready to play or not. As a matter of fact, he just threw the other day after this surgery a couple of days ago and threw the ball with a high school team down in Mississippi, and he said, that's really not where I want it yet, though the doctors are saying we'll give it a little bit more time. Could you do something for him?
Yes, absolutely. No question. I'll give you a simple analogy. We had a gentleman by the name of Daryl Kahn. Daryl was the first Chinese NFL quarterback. Played behind Joe Montana at San Francisco. Bill Walsh was one of his close personal friends. Daryl is now a world-renowned surgeon, Curlin Job's doctor, and he had exactly the same thing Brett had. Daryl couldn't throw the football without pain. And within 5 days, we had Daryl throwing faster, harder, with greater velocity than he was when he was with the 49ers. What Brett's issue is everybody's issue is the same. Where we do surgery and where the pain is where the problem ended. It is not at all where it's coming from. And I know Brett, and I know Bus, and if Brett decides that he wants to play football again, we'll probably work with him, and we'll get him ready to play football.
Have you contacted him, been in contact with him?
I've talked to Bus, his agent, a number of times, and it's just a matter right now, if Brett wants to play, and that's the $64,000 question, if he wants to play, then we'll be probably called in to speed up that whole process.
Do you find, obviously you've had so many success stories, do you still find that people are skeptical? Is there a skepticism there with Bus or Favre, or?
I don't know if there's a skepticism, but I think there is a fear of going against the current tide. With the listeners, I'm sure there's an unbelievable amount of skepticism, because if somebody were to tell me what I'm saying right now, I'd say, well, why in the world doesn't everybody in the world do this? And the answer is economics. I mean, bottom line, medicine is economics. We don't do traditional therapy. We're not physical therapists. We do not have degrees in physical therapy medicine. What we do is we work on healthy muscles that didn't do their job, which caused the need for physical therapy. And so if we can prevent it from happening, and if we can work on the origin, we're going to solve a lot of problems.
Well, it worked for me, I know that, and it's worked for many, many others. Speaking of therapy, there are different kinds. We want to talk, when we come back from our break, we're going to talk about what the system does differently than all the other therapies. Then, of course, we're going to include, as we always do during the show, email questions that we've had from listeners, people that have heard previous shows and say, hey, I have a question. Can I be helped? This, that, that. So we'll get those questions into the show as well. And again, if you want to contact Dennis or anybody at his clinic, any of his staff, you can do so two different ways. ARPWave.com, ARPWave.com. That's P as in Paul. ARPWave.com, or you can call them 952-431-9708, 952-431-9708. The clinic is in Burnsville. The corporate office is in
Apple Valley.
But if they also have the ARP Wave, what do we call the crew again?
The ARP Squad.
The ARP Squad. Yeah, I was thinking about
exactly.
They'll come to you.
Yes.
And we'll talk more about that as well. So we'll take a break and we'll come back for our next segment.